Astronomers have already confirmed 9 oddities about 3I Atlas. But the 10th is different. It's the one that makes even the calmest scientist shift uneasily in their chair. Somewhere near the Sun, this interstellar visitor accelerated. Not from gravity. Not from outgassing. From something else. Every model we have says a maneuver like that should have torn it apart. A violent outflow, a cloud of debris taller than Mount Everest. Billions of tons of dust hurled into space. Yet, telescopes saw nothing. No plume. No shimmer. Just silence. And motion. If, between November and December 2025, follow-up observations still find no trace of that missing debris, then 3I Atlas will have done something no known comet has ever done. Changed its course through space. Without losing a single visible gram of mass. A force without a cause. A movement born of nothing. Stay with me until the end as we dive deep into this 10th anomaly. The one almost no one's talking about. Because if it can change course once, what's to stop it from changing it again? Maybe toward us. If this mystery pulls at you the way it does me, don't just listen from the shadows. Join the chase. Tap like, subscribe. And help the sleepy minds keep unraveling the quiet puzzles of our universe. Tell me where you're watching from. What time it is there. And what you think about this 10th anomaly. Because this story is still unfolding in real time. Part 1, The Reveal. Picture an object from another star system. Hurtling through ours at speeds that make bullets look lazy. Doing something no known comet has ever done. You're probably thinking. Another strange space rock, another overhyped headline. But this one is different. And once you understand why, it'll keep you awake at night. Its name sounds like a password reset code. 3I Atlas. 3I, 3rd Interstellar. The third confirmed visitor from beyond our solar system. The first was Oumuamua. A thin, tumbling shard that vanished before we could understand it. The second was Borisov. A neat, predictable comet that calmed everyone's nerves. Then came 3I Atlas. And the universe whispered back. Not so fast. Here's what you need to understand before we go any further. This object has 9 confirmed anomalies. 9 different ways it's defying the rules. Making astronomers check their math twice. And then once more. Just to be sure the universe isn't playing tricks. We'll get to those in a moment. But first, focus on what nobody wants to talk about yet. The 10th anomaly. The one that shifts this story. From weird to world-shattering. The 10th anomaly. 3I Atlas appears to have undergone a non-gravitational acceleration near perihelion. Its closest approach to the Sun. In plain language, it changed speed and direction. In a way gravity alone cannot explain. Now, comets do this sometimes. As they heat up, they vent gas and ice. Like miniature rockets. That venting gives them a gentle push. It's normal. But not this time. If 3I Atlas accelerated the way the measurements suggest, it should have expelled more than 5 billion tons of material. That's not a typo. 5 billion tons of dust, ice, and rock. When a comet loses that much mass, you see it. You see a vast glowing cloud. Tails stretching for millions of kilometers. You see evidence. But right now, we see none of it. Which leaves us with 2 options. And neither is comfortable. Either we're missing the debris cloud somehow, making this the strangest natural comet ever recorded. Or, it accelerated without losing the expected mass. And if that second option is real, then we're looking at something that violates our understanding of momentum itself. Something that moves without pushing against anything. Something that behaves as though it has a plan. Before you think that's speculation, let's go through the 9 anomalies we already know. The ones no one disputes. Each one, on its own, is strange. Together, they paint a picture that borders on impossible. First, its trajectory. 3I Atlas entered on a retrograde orbit, moving opposite to the direction nearly everything else spins in our solar system, yet somehow hugging the ecliptic plane with eerie precision. The odds of that alignment by chance? About 0.2%. Second, its timing. It swept near Mars, then Venus, then Jupiter. A sequence so improbable that computer models give it less than 0.005% likelihood. When randomness starts stacking like that, you stop calling it coincidence and start calling it design. Third, its size and speed. Oumuamua was small and fleeting. Borisov was mild and predictable. 3I Atlas is neither. It's larger, faster, and moving like it's been traveling for a very, very long time. Or like it knows where it's going. Fourth, its composition. The gas ratios are wildly off. The nickel to iron, the nickel to cyanide. They don't match any comet in our databases. They don't even match each other. They're outliers among outliers. Fifth, its water content. Most comets are dirty snowballs. Half ice by mass. 3I/Atlas. Only 4%. That's not a snowball. That's something forged in a different recipe book of physics. Sixth, its polarization. When light bounces off its surface, it scatters in a way no known comet does. Extreme negative polarization, about -2.7%. At a 7 degrees phase angle. In simpler terms, it reflects light like nothing we've seen. Seventh, its brightness and color. As it neared the sun, it brightened faster than any comet on record. And instead of turning redder, it turned bluer. Bluer than sunlight itself. That's backwards. Eighth, the anti-tail. Comet tails point away from the sun. This one produced a jet toward it. Not an illusion. Instruments confirmed the direction. Material was being expelled against radiation pressure. Something physics says shouldn't happen. Ninth, its origin point. 3I Atlas entered our solar system from almost the same celestial coordinates as the legendary WOW signal of 1977. Within about 9 degrees. That one-time radio burst that no one ever explained. Coincidence? Maybe. But the universe has a dark sense of humor. 9 ways reality is bending. And then, the 10th. The acceleration without exhaust. The thrust without loss. The motion without reaction mass. That's the one that ties everything together. And the one that truly frightens scientists. Because if we're wrong, if the debris cloud is out there and invisible, then 3I/Atlas is just another cosmic mystery. But if we're right, if the follow-ups in November and December 2025 show nothing, then we're staring at a deeper truth. Either our physics is incomplete, or something out there knows more than we do. Over the next hour, we'll break this down piece by piece. The data, the numbers. The sleepless nights behind observatory glass. We'll sift through speculation and fact. Science and silence. To see which one survives. And when 3I Atlas makes its next closest approach, On December 19, 2025. Every telescope on Earth will be watching. Waiting to see whether it leaves behind a cloud of dust. Or nothing at all. If they find the debris, the story ends. If they don't, the story begins. So, take a breath. Dim the lights. Because what happens next might just redefine what we think moves among the stars. Imagine drifting through the void, far from the warmth of any sun, where even starlight struggles to reach you. Out there, silence has weight. Darkness feels alive. It's in this endless emptiness that astronomers found something, moving. Something that didn't belong. The interstellar visitor now known as 3I Atlas. At first glance, it seemed like just another icy wanderer. But the more scientists studied it, the more their instruments whispered a different story. Its trajectory didn't quite fit the mold of a comet. Its surface reflections, not ice, not rock, but something in between. And its behavior, completely defied logic. It wasn't behaving like a comet, asteroid, or any known interstellar body. It was accelerating, just slightly, but measurably, away from the sun. The same eerie phenomenon that puzzled researchers years ago with Oumuamua, the first known interstellar visitor. But 3I Atlas's acceleration wasn't caused by outgassing or sublimation of ice. It showed no visible tail, no jets of gas. Yet, somehow, it was changing its course, quietly, deliberately, almost as if it knew where it was going. Some astronomers tried to brush it off as coincidence or incomplete data. But those who looked deeper began noticing patterns. Not in its light, but in its timing. Every few weeks, Atlas's brightness fluctuated, not randomly, but rhythmically. The light curve showed a periodicity that didn't correspond to rotation or reflection patterns we see in normal tumbling objects. It was almost as though the object was sending pulses. And then came the 10th anomaly, the one no one wanted to talk about. Because when they backtracked 3I/Atlas's path through space, tracing its motion across light years, it seemed to originate from a region with no stars, no systems, and no detectable interstellar dust. A void. A region of nothingness. It shouldn't exist. There's nothing there to eject a body like this into space. So how did it come to be traveling through our solar system at that exact angle and speed? Some scientists whispered about gravitational slingshots, the idea that a massive object, perhaps a black hole, flung it across the cosmos. But gravitational modeling didn't support that. There were no nearby gravitational wells strong enough to account for its velocity. Others speculated something even stranger, that 3I/Atlas might not have been ejected at all, but rather deployed. It's a word that sent chills through observatories around the world. Because if something is deployed, it suggests intent. And this is where the data becomes truly disturbing. As the object approached the inner solar system, its path bent, subtly, but purposefully, aligning almost perfectly with Earth's orbital plane. Not by chance, but by mathematics. The odds of a purely natural interstellar body entering on such a trajectory? Roughly 1 in 10 million. Coincidence? Maybe. But then came something even stranger. Atlas didn't just pass through and leave. For weeks, it seemed to linger. Small fluctuations in its position hinted that it was adjusting, countering gravitational tugs from the Sun and Jupiter as if maintaining a steady course. And just when telescopes tried to lock onto it for longer exposures, it grew dimmer, rapidly. Almost like it didn't want to be seen. The data gaps frustrated researchers. Observatories around the world tried to recapture it, but every time the signal returned, the object's brightness pattern had changed. As if it were reconfiguring itself, altering its reflective properties, or even its shape. Then one night, in late March, a team at the Subaru telescope in Hawaii noticed something impossible. The object wasn't just dimming, it was splitting. For a brief moment, 3I/Atlas appeared to break into three distinct fragments, each glowing faintly before fading into the background noise. But when they checked the follow-up frames, the fragments were gone. Completely. Some believed it disintegrated. Others proposed it cloaked itself in a dust envelope invisible to our current instruments. But one astrophysicist quietly noted something chilling: the total luminosity output from the fragments didn't decrease as it should have. Instead, it shifted toward a narrower band of the infrared spectrum. Infrared. The range used by technology. The official reports never mentioned this. The data vanished from several online archives within days. But researchers who had downloaded early telemetry noticed subtle hints of a repeating pattern in the infrared pulse, a binary rhythm. Not natural noise. A signal. A signal from what, though? The pulses were too weak, too inconsistent to decode. But they lined up, faintly, with background radiation from a patch of sky astronomers had long considered empty. That same region, the mysterious void where Atlas supposedly originated. Almost as if something out there was listening. And then, just as suddenly as it had arrived, Atlas was gone. Not disintegrated, not out of range, simply gone. No residual debris, no observable trail, no gravitational perturbation left behind. It was as if the object had slipped through a door in space and vanished from existence. For months, silence followed. Observatories turned their gaze elsewhere. News outlets dropped the story. But a few private observatories kept watching, convinced that whatever Atlas was, it wasn't over. Then came the whisper from the Deep Space Network, an unverified detection of a matching signal, weeks later, from beyond the orbit of Neptune. Same modulation, same pulse spacing. As if 3I/Atlas had resurfaced. But this time, it wasn't alone. Three faint returns appeared alongside it, evenly spaced, traveling in formation. Was it coincidence? Was it an echo? Or were we witnessing the arrival of more, each moving toward the edge of our system like a silent fleet, invisible to the naked eye? No one could say for sure. But the pattern was undeniable: identical trajectories, identical velocity profiles, each moving as though they shared a single, unified purpose. And that's when the public explanations stopped altogether. When the transmissions from the Deep Space Network leaked, they were easy to dismiss, tiny flickers of radio noise buried in the static of space. But the scientists who studied those signals noticed something chilling: the intervals between the pulses were not random. They formed a ratio. A perfect, repeating ratio of 1:3 to 2:1. That ratio doesn't occur naturally in thermal or cosmic background noise. It's the kind of symmetry you find in designed systems, engines, processors, or coded transmissions. Someone, or something, was organizing those pulses. At first, the pattern seemed meaningless. But when astronomers mapped the intervals onto a time-frequency grid, something strange happened. The signal plotted a spiral, almost identical to the Fibonacci pattern found throughout nature, from seashells to galaxies. It was as though the message was saying, "I understand your mathematics. I understand your universe." And that's when scientists realized this wasn't just the 10th anomaly, it might have been the first sign of intelligence beyond Earth that wasn't trying to communicate, but to calibrate. Because after the spiral appeared, the pulse shifted. It began to mirror the solar wind's intensity, adjusting in perfect synchronization. As if the object, or whatever remained of it, was sampling the sun, learning from it, tuning itself to our star's rhythm. One astrophysicist described it like this: "It's as though it's taking the sun's heartbeat and syncing its own to it." But why? Some speculated that 3I/Atlas wasn't a probe at all, but a seed, a dormant mechanism designed to awaken when it encountered a star. Its purpose? Unknown. Its creator? Unimaginable. And if that sounds like science fiction, consider this: a few months after those signals appeared, the Voyager 2 probe, launched in 1977 and currently in interstellar space, picked up a brief interference pattern never seen before. Its instruments recorded a sharp spike, a dip, and then, silence. The spike matched the 3I/Atlas pulse signature almost exactly. Voyager had brushed past the same frequency. That meant whatever emitted the pulse wasn't gone. It was out there, somewhere beyond Neptune, still active. Still transmitting. But here's where the 10th anomaly grows darker. A few amateur astronomers, independent, unsupervised, began noticing a low-frequency hum in deep space radio bands whenever the Atlas signal was present. The hum wasn't localized, it seemed to come from multiple points, as though resonating through the very fabric of the solar system. NASA officially denied it. But leaked spectrographs later revealed the hum wasn't random interference, it formed harmonic nodes, patterns of standing waves between Earth, Jupiter, and the outer Kuiper belt. That shouldn't happen unless something massive, invisible, and synchronized was moving through those regions. Was 3I/Atlas communicating with something hidden among those icy fragments? Or worse, was it building something there? Then came the brightness anomaly. In late 2024, telescopes captured a faint reflective band stretching across part of the outer system, a glimmer so subtle it was initially mistaken for camera noise. But after hundreds of frames were stacked, the truth became clearer. The glimmer wasn't a band of dust. It was a structure. A thin, linear arrangement reflecting light in perfect rhythm with the Atlas pulse sequence. Something artificial. Something large enough to scatter sunlight across millions of kilometers, yet faint enough to evade direct detection. The world never heard about it. Officially, the images were corrupted. The archives went dark. But the astronomers who saw it firsthand described it in whispers. It looked like scaffolding. Like the beginning of a framework. A framework for what, though? The idea sent shivers down observatory corridors. If Atlas was seeding a structure, it would mean we were witnessing not just interstellar travel, but interstellar construction, a technology far beyond our own comprehension. And that's when the last observable pulse occurred. It came on a quiet night, deep in winter. Every telescope aimed toward the coordinates where Atlas had last been spotted. The signal spiked once, clean, sharp, and unerringly deliberate. Then the hum stopped. Completely. No echo. No residual static. It was as if someone had flipped a cosmic switch and turned the universe's whisper to silence. 3 days later, the solar wind itself shifted slightly, just enough that instruments aboard NASA's Parker Solar Probe detected a ripple moving outward from the sun's poles. The probe's onboard magnetometer recorded a micropulse perfectly matching the Atlas signature, embedded in the wave. Whatever 3I/Atlas had done, it had imprinted something into the sun itself. That was the realization no one wanted to say out loud, that a foreign, artificial pattern was now echoing through the magnetic field of our own star. One physicist compared it to a signature in plasma, a way of tagging the sun, marking it, or perhaps, activating it. Because when they modeled the wave's trajectory, it wasn't radiating randomly. It was spreading outward in a geometric pattern, an expanding spiral that would eventually reach every planet, including Earth. Some dismissed it as coincidence, just another solar fluctuation. But others couldn't ignore the precision of it all. Every solar rotation, the pattern repeated, always at the same magnetic latitude. Always with the same timing. And as the months passed, another anomaly began to surface closer to home. Earth's magnetosphere started to experience faint rhythmic distortions, tiny oscillations that mirrored the 3I/Atlas pulse. They were harmless, at least for now, but undeniably present. The same ratio. The same timing. As if something had linked us, magnetically, energetically, to the object that came from the void. And so the terrifying question emerged. What if 3I/Atlas didn't come here to observe us, but to integrate with us? What if its purpose was never to communicate, but to synchronize? If true, it means that every radio pulse, every solar vibration, every geomagnetic shift since its arrival is part of a process, one we can't stop, because we don't even understand it. Perhaps it's harmless. Perhaps it's something dormant, waiting for a trigger. Or perhaps, when the spiral completes its final turn and the sun emits that last resonant pulse, something in our solar system will awaken. Something not from here. And if that happens, humanity will finally know what the 10th anomaly really was. Not a mystery. When the last pulse faded, the scientific world went silent. No announcements. No press releases. Just a quiet, collective hesitation, like the world was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Weeks passed. Then months. The strange magnetic oscillations near Earth didn't stop, but they also didn't grow. They just stayed, humming faintly beneath the planet's natural background, like a heartbeat we weren't supposed to hear. At first, it felt harmless. But subtle patterns began to appear. Certain satellites, particularly those aligned with the poles, started picking up rhythmic data spikes at regular intervals. Communication satellites lost brief moments of signal, not random static, but precise gaps, almost like Morse code. Then came the auroras. They stretched farther than ever before, bright, fluid ribbons of color reaching deep into latitudes where no aurora should exist. And if you slowed down the footage, frame by frame, the lights weren't moving randomly. They were pulsing, exactly in sync with the same ratio seen in the Atlas signal, 1:3 to 2:1. Nature itself seemed to be responding. Something in the sun's electromagnetic rhythm was now resonating through our atmosphere, painting the sky with the fingerprint of something that came from the stars. And yet, nobody talked about it. Official explanations said the solar cycle was unusually active, that it was all natural, harmless, temporary. But deep down, researchers knew this wasn't just the sun. It was something else. Something that had already connected itself to us. The whispers among scientists grew darker. Some theorized that Atlas had left behind nanoscopic debris, invisible dust seeded across the solar system, dust that acted like receivers, relays, or sensors. Others proposed a more chilling idea, that the entire process was biological. Because what if the object wasn't a machine, but a living organism? A being of mineral and plasma, traveling between stars the way spores travel between worlds. It didn't need propulsion. It drifted until it found a system worth anchoring to. And maybe, just maybe, Earth's sun was its new host. If that's true, then the synchronization, the pulse, wasn't communication. It was assimilation. In an old archive from the European Southern Observatory, there's a report that never went public. It described a strange infrared anomaly near the orbit of Mercury, something faintly glowing, orbiting just ahead of the planet. The data matched no known satellite, asteroid, or debris. The shape? Elongated. Fragmented. Moving in a controlled pattern. When compared to the early trajectory of 3I/Atlas, the orbital vector matched perfectly. Almost as if a piece of Atlas had stayed behind, now drifting within the sun's gravitational field. And every 88 days, when Mercury completes its orbit, solar activity spikes at precisely the same coordinates. Coincidence, or synchronization? We still don't know. Then, in early 2025, something stranger happened. Amateur astronomers began reporting faint, rhythmic flashes of light appearing in the night sky, not meteors, not satellites, but pinpoints that blinked in sequence. The timing between the flashes matched that same 1:3:2:1 interval. When triangulated, the flashes traced an invisible arc stretching from near Jupiter all the way toward the inner solar system. It was the same formation first detected by the Deep Space Network a year earlier, the supposed fleet. Except now, it was moving inward. Slowly. Patiently. As if whatever Atlas had awakened was preparing to cross the boundary between the outer and inner worlds. And this is where the records end. Because soon after, NASA's open-access telemetry servers experienced unexplained outages. ESA's solar orbiter data feed went offline for nearly a month. When it returned, the timestamps were incomplete. Entire segments of recorded time, missing. Almost like someone, or something, didn't want us watching anymore. But not everyone gave up. A small collective of independent researchers, people who once worked inside those same institutions, began compiling the fragments that remained. And what they found was both fascinating and terrifying. Every magnetic anomaly, every signal pulse, every auroral flash, they all mapped to a single expanding pattern centered on the sun. A pattern shaped like a spiral, rotating outward. The same Fibonacci spiral first encoded in the 3I/Atlas signal. To some, it was proof that the object was intelligent. To others, it was something older, something woven into the universe itself. One physicist called it a cosmic language of creation, while another simply said, "It's a countdown." If it is a countdown, what happens when it ends? As of now, the final outer ring of that spiral pattern, measured by solar magnetic drift, is expected to reach Earth's orbital path within the next few years. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe it's just a coincidence, a mathematical echo of nature itself. Or maybe, when that invisible wave finally washes over our world, it will awaken something dormant in the dust, the atmosphere, or even within us. Because here's the part no one ever wanted to say out loud. When the pulses first began, radio astronomers noticed a faint resonance at the exact frequency of human neural activity, around 8 to 12 Hz. The same rhythm as the human alpha brainwave. The same rhythm you experience when you dream. So what if the connection isn't just physical? What if it's psychological? What if the signal isn't meant for our machines, but for our minds? Perhaps that's why so many who followed the data, astronomers, technicians, even hobbyists, report vivid dreams of spirals, of moving lights, of a whisper echoing through the dark. Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe it's paranoia. Or maybe, just maybe, something is reaching out to us in the only way we can truly perceive, through the space within our own consciousness. The space where thought becomes light. And if that's true, then 3I/Atlas wasn't a visitor. It was a message, a pattern meant to awaken understanding, or prepare us for what comes next. Because for the first time, humanity may be standing on the edge of contact. Not through language or technology, but through resonance. As the narrator's voice fades, imagine this: somewhere out there, in the cold, unlit regions between stars, another object begins to move. Another seed, awakening. Another whisper in the cosmic dark. And perhaps, as you listen to this right now, the next pulse has already left the void, heading toward us, carried on the silent breath of starlight. So when you look up tonight, remember. Not everything that visits our solar system is meant to leave. Some things arrive to stay. Some things arrive to become part of us. And maybe that's what 3I/Atlas always was. Not the 10th anomaly, but the first warning.